seasoned professional in finance, organizational, technical, and social management of rural electrification projects, and more generally, low carbon emission and renewable energy projects. Then I have Mr. Zhu Avan. Mr. Zhu Avan is currently a program officer at UNDP, Madagascar, and he comes with 15 years of experience in policy analysis, private sector development, and sustainable development project management. Mrs. Volatin is the UNIDO representative for Madagascar. She's got over 20 years of professional experience in private sector development, including agro-industry development, and also in evaluating projects across Africa. Welcome. Last but not least, Mr. Vincent Werda, the United Capacity Development Fund lead in inclusive digital economies, is a strong believer in market-based solutions, including for energy access. He built that belief over 20 years of practice, extensively involving in the most challenging markets in both Africa and Asia, working across UN agencies, private sector, as well as the civil society. Welcome to my panel. As you can see, we have a very seasoned panel that is going to address the question of access to energy renewable energy sector in Madagascar. Now, since I know that time is counted, let me plant the decor, as we say in French, by recalling some of the points made yesterday by the DG of Energy in Madagascar. Mr. Sambatre reminded us that Madagascar is said to have lost 70% of its forest cover, while 80% of energy consumption relies on biomass from wood and charcoal. Electricity is mainly based on pollutant sources of production, representing 3% of the total energy consumption. Only 1% of the population have access to clean fuels and technologies. Only 16% of the population have access to an electricity grid. This rate is as low as 6% when it comes to the rural sector. Some will see this as a vast potential of opportunities to develop renewable energy sources in Madagascar. Others will look at it from the glass being half empty, by saying that it is because of lack of infrastructure, lack of adequate financial vehicles for investment, and also the business environment as bottlenecks. I think we are here today to demonstrate the contrary by looking at the glass half full. This panel will help us to unpack what is in there for sustainable renewable energy and how we can get involved in investing to promote that sector. So I'm going to start with the DG of the Ministry of Energy by asking the following question to Mr. Sambatre. You will have circa 5 minutes to respond, please. Can you please share with us what the government is doing in terms of measures to accompany the promotion of the renewable sector in Madagascar?
Thank you very much. Today, I would like to give you a short summary of vision, policy, and the commitment of Malagasy state, and then the actions that the government have taken to encourage and to facilitate investment. Ensure access to affordable, renewable, sustainable, and modern energy for all is part of a commitment of Malagasy state. In order to achieve it, the government has set itself these ambitious objectives, which are to improve the right of access to electricity to 50%, to target electricity production capacity mainly from renewable energy, and providing clean energy to households to reaching the sustainable development. To meet the major challenges, the country has defined the energy policy with purpose to facilitate investment and make it attractive for investors. Firstly, reform, adaptation, and strengthening of the regulatory and institutional framework. The Malagasy government put in place an attractive legislative framework for new private electricity operators. The electricity sector in Mada is governed by the law in 2017, which was voted for favor of the liberalization of production, transmission, and distribution activities. Secondly, regarding the tax and customs benefit, tax reduction measures for investment in production and supply of renewable energy have been adopted. The country has also promoted exemption from duties and taxes on various renewable energy equipment. To facilitate, the ministry are in process of setting up the dissemination of procedures on tax and customs measures, including the updating of a list of equipment benefiting from exemption. The dissemination of procedures on tax and custom measures, the establishment of one-stop shop for renewable energy. The third point is the establishment of the FNED. That means National Sustainable Energy Fund. It's a financial instrument created by the law, Malagasy law, in 2017, but the implementing decree for this FNED's law is in process of being adopted by the government. Their mission will be to finance electricity infrastructure development projects in rural areas based on renewable energy, where operator and investor can contribute. It has clear management procedures, appropriate mechanisms, and tools to meet the concern for transparency, independence, and investment security. So we have identified different solutions to facilitate investment and to encourage investors in energy sector. This is why we are seizing opportunities to make our country more attractive to the private sector. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. DG. Okay, we are taking note of the fact that in Madagascar, the government is making strides to really put the vision, the policies, the laws, the incentives, as you have heard. I'm not going to go into more details on that, but the environment itself is being put in place. And I just want to see from the perspective of the private sector, I have two CEOs that I want to give a chance to sort of give us an idea of their own projects. One is the mini grid, the other one is the bioethanol production, to give us a perspective on what financial investment challenges do you face in the domain of the sustainable energy sector and the solutions you are seeing going forward. So I will start by Mr. Zhu. It's a combined session, so they will be sharing the 7 minutes each, but hopefully we can get into not more than 10 to 14 minutes, please.
I'll be as short as possible. Hello, everyone. So my name is Zurozan Amas, and the project I'm talking about is OBOAM, 7,000 liter per day production of bioethanol from cassava. What is the main main goal of this project? It's to initiate a fair rural development, to provide an alternative to fossil fuel and wood for clean cooking, but also a substitute of gasoline in the near future. And the third reason, but not the least, make money. The key starting point of the project were, first, the Malagasy government law on bioethanol on 2013, who allowed private promoter to produce ethanol. The second starting point is the market opportunity. 2.5 million to 5 million liters per day is the market of clean cooking if you are using ethanol. And if you are aiming the biofuel for car, it's 420,000 liters per day. So the market is huge. And when we start the project, we've been promised two things this moment. The first one is any project of production under the PNEC. PNEC was the Programme National pour l'Éthanol Combustible, National Program for Ethanol. Any product under the PNEC will be financed by a loan at a commercial bank POA, guaranteed by the government. The information comes from the government and confirmed by the bank. The second information is the World Bank will also support the government Malagasy with a loan of $25 million. And the information was also confirmed by the resident representative of World Bank at this moment. Guys, these are solid guarantees from our perspective of private entrepreneur. So let's dive in. Then from 2016, we've learned everything about producing ethanol from local and international consultants. I won't tell you the list of things that we've learned, it's too long. We did it. And to do so, we've built a proof of concept in 18 months with about 200,000 USD of investment and about $100,000 on research costs. then we've asked for financement, and I've been asked 2 more efforts to test the market. It's fair. The market of ethanol in Madagascar is very new. No one have tested as a clean cooking. And then we also have been asked to prove that we are able to produce what we have announced, even if the concept unique, the proof of concept we build is too small to be profitable. But we did it. But after that, the BOA never financed the project. And the World Bank doesn't give us a dime. I won't explain you why, but it's a long tail story. Meanwhile, we've asked one of the most famous local consultants to help us to upgrade the quality of the biplane, because maybe it's the quality of our biplane who is not good enough. The objective was to leverage $3.5 million to upscale our project. After 18 months of operating at a loss and 800,000 USD of total expense, we decided to stop the production in 2018. Why? Because we have to limit our loss. And from then, we are still continuing fighting to search financement for our upscale. I think I let my sister to show her project not being too long.
Thank you very much, CEO Zhu. I won't summarize now. I'll give the floor to Camille to follow through, and we'll go to the others. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Issa. Thank you, Brother Zhu. Okay, so as it was mentioned, my name is Camille, and I'm the managing director and co-founder of a company called Anka Madagascar, as you can see on the screen. Nice logo, by the way. So I'm based in Madagascar. I've been living there for the past 9 years. And I had the initial ambition, I was young. I had the ambition to work and to address 3 main challenges in the energy sector, which are energy access, energy reliability, and energy sobriety. But for the purpose of this event, I'm just going to focus on energy access. And in order to elaborate on Anka's mission and action, I'd like to actually use a concrete example and illustration. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Ta-da! So this is one of our achievements, and this is kind of a good example of what we've done and what we do, also in connection with the whole event and the whole discussions that we've been through these 2 days. So Anka is basically what we call a solar-based mini-grid developer and operator, which means that we develop, build, and operate mini-grid infrastructures together with solar plants to both generate electricity, transport, and distribute to end customers in remote and isolated areas. This particular plant, for instance, is a 400 kilowatt PV capacity plant, together with more of 30 kilometers distribution lines, both low voltage and medium voltage, addressing about 10,000 people, so providing them with electricity on a continuous service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, introducing smart metering solution, providing mobile payments and prepayment functionalities and options. And something that we think is very important in our approach is not to consider ourselves only as, sellers of electrons, but actually creator of real wealth. And to do that, we have developed a sort of a innovative, holistic approach where, thanks to access to electricity and setting up these infrastructures, we use electricity as a mean to empower all the type of activities that could create added value locally, create more jobs, empower communities, and bring more better living conditions. So we've been working especially on an agri-energy nexus business model That means that thanks to electricity, we work on improving agricultural or agribusinesses practices. We also try to introduce more of agri-processing activities back into rural areas. Most of the time we are producing, but not processing, which actually brings more added value. We're also introducing clean cooking, water supply in parallel of electricity supply, and obviously we're working very closely with entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, and what we call agripreneurs to boost income generating activities, again to foster local economy, which has a double benefit. One, to bring more impact to the communities and help achieving more SDGs, but at the same time also reinforce the profitability of our business cases, because as you mentioned and many other people mentioned, one of our purposes is also to make money and to live out of our activity. So interesting thing about this project as well is that it has been funded through a blended finance mechanism, including both grants, concessional debt, and equity provided by different sponsors. It is also registered to the gold standard voluntary market for CO2. So that makes this project a good example of mini-grid and energy access being linked to carbon finance. So this is an illustration of what we're doing, and I thought it would be interesting for you to see what it looks like. But we have 17 mini-grids that look like this, just like this one, in Madagascar, for an overall capacity of more than 2 megawatts PV installed, targeting more than 50,000 beneficiaries, and avoiding, during the whole duration of the project's lifetime, about 90,000 tons of CO2. Now we are also expanding and trying to bring our services and our, humble experience to other markets. So we're also working in Togo, Zambia, and Ethiopia at the moment, and maybe in the future in many more markets. And at the moment, only for Madagascar, we are working on a pipeline. Yesterday we talked about pipeline. I've been working on building a pipeline, and today we have a pipeline of new projects for building up new mini-grids for about $20 million to be financed, and this will have to go through a blended financing mechanism. But the thing is that we need some support, and as you mentioned, there are some challenges that we're facing in Madagascar, and that is what we would like to address all together, you and I, now, because we think that we have similar concerns or we are facing similar challenges. So I'll just start with the first comment, which is obviously on financing. So what we observe is that there is a lack of appropriate financing mechanisms and funding facilities to scale up our projects. Now, together with this team, this dream team, UNCDF, UNDP, and UNIDO, and the setting up of this SDG joint funds, there is a promise of a de-risking facility that will bring grants to share risks and to leverage on private investments, a promise also of loans and guarantees to help build more profitable business cases and to again attract more private investors. So this is very encouraging. Another challenge that we've been facing is change. Actually, change is hard, and achieving SDGs requires collaborative work, mutual learning, dialogue, and communication. And we think that in order to achieve more and faster, it would really need more communication and consideration for feedbacks coming also from the private sector, and building this dialogue between financiers, donors, institutions, and doers, as we like to call ourselves. And I pass on to Zu.
Thank you, Camille. Okay, just 2 points to conclude. As I said, we have been promised a lot of things, and none of them have been done. from local bank, from the World Bank, even from IFC. And the reason is there's a mismatch between the need of the entrepreneur and what classical financial are measuring the risk of the project. And maybe also there's a lack of knowledge from us, I mean in financial parts. That's why the technical assistance is very important. And it is more important than today. We're not talking about just the old time financial service that we are looking for. We need to implement now in Madagascar an SDG fund. That is the first reason. To conclude, the last point we'd like to emphasize is about the perception of the entrepreneur, the SME in such project. Usually, financial people are looking at us as the most risky part of a project. Yes, we endorse the most difficult part of a project, the risk. But don't forget, if you don't exist, you don't have the chain to go to the field. As Camille said, we are the doer. So we learn how to do it. We learn from those people also what are they waiting for, and we have to teach each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zo and Mrs. Camille. I think you've set the decor. The enabling environment is there, the promises are there, but they are not fulfilled. And this is why the SDG Fund is actually venturing into it. You have demonstrated the proof of concept that they work. There is a market side to it in Madagascar, but there are challenges, funding. There are challenges in terms of changing the mindset, how the partners can work together to learn mutually. And you mentioned the necessity of having technical assistance. I want to actually jump on that one and move to the other panelists, knowing that we all need to take risks. You've taken risk, and I think for it to work, knowing the sector and its linkages with every other SDGs, as you mentioned, Mrs. Camille, in education, in agriculture, etc., I think it's worth taking the risk. Now, the SDG Fund is trying to bridge some of those gaps. As far as the technical assistance is concerned, I want to turn to Mr. Zhu and Aidoo from UNDP to tell us in few minutes, really few words, what do you bring in terms of support when it comes to your involvement in the SDG Fund? Mr. Zhu?
Yeah, thank you so much, and hello everyone. For two persons from the private sector raised the challenges they are facing in terms of access to finance. And this joint proposal we developed during these last 2 years are trying to bring the gap. The three main interventions of this joint proposal is will be described later. But for my case, one of the way we are trying to address the issues raised are to implement, to assist the government of Madagascar. We are here to provide technical assistance to the government of Madagascar in setting up a national sovereign fund. This national sovereign fund is one way to mobilize internally resources and target them to innovative and high impact project. especially for project whose costs are high and cannot be only supported by private sector. So the National Sovereign Fund is intended to support this kind of investment, and it will invest in strategic and priority development projects that are profitable and creating jobs. One of them might be in the renewable energy sector or in infrastructures development. So that is what we are trying to implement in this project by giving the government of Madagascar technical assistance, providing to them the technical assistance they need to implement this sovereign fund. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhu. If you link it back to what we heard yesterday, I think one of the participants was mentioning the fact that we need to look into our own internal resources, inward funding. So as we go through this process, you'll see how the ecosystem is being set up to also tap into the inward funding. You've heard what the government is doing to abate taxes, to facilitate customs, etc., subsidies, and this is another way of actually mobilizing inward funding. Thanks, Mr. Zhu. I want to turn now to Mr. Vul, Mrs. Vul, the res rep of UNIDO. From all that you have heard so far, what else do you think you bring to the table that has not been said yet? Thanks.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. Yesterday, we heard a lot about sustainability and scalability. Otherwise, there will not be growth. We heard also that SMEs were the backbone of development, and there were two questions which were from the few takeaways I got yesterday. The first was how to de-risk young entrepreneurs and startup. The second was how to make private sector, the private actors fit for financing. So what we bring on the table is this sustainable energy incubators. It is a cycle of 12 months accompanying startups and young entrepreneurs operating in the sustainable energy sector. Out of this 12 months, we allocate 8 months to accompany them, providing training, providing deeper analysis of their business model, and preparing them to be fit for this financial purpose and to be funded. So during this cohort, we offer what the first Zhu said, the learning, the knowledge, and all the tools so that they can be presented to financial institutions and get bankable proposals. This is what the SEI, or the Sustainable Energy Incubator, is offering. And just to finish is that we plan to have 45 initiatives or projects. 50% of those projects over the 3 years of the initiative are meant to be ready for funding and to get financed by financial institutions. This is a tailored approach as it considers local context. That is one of the innovation as we talk about the local or the country-specific context. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Another dimension to the project. As you can see, the ecosystem is building up. And it is not only about the big companies, nor the big projects, but it's also about bringing the small ones, because the size of the market is huge. And we were talking about scale. If we want to fill the need of scale, it's also about granularity. And that's where the project is also trying to bring the incubator dimension into play, so that we bring along those proof of concepts that are working and the ones that are still in the drawers with high potential to join the market. Thank you very much, Mrs. Voul. Now I'm going to turn to Mr. Vincent. I want you to look at the overall perspective now in terms of partnerships and investment tools that can be mobilized to improve the long-term sustainable energy solutions in Madagascar. I know UNCDF brings in a lot of capacity dimensions, so I want to hear from you, what are you bringing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you. It's a high pressure moment for me, because I have Ferde in the audience, who is one of the key people building UNCDF, and also Max, who always asks very tough questions about this program. So just to say, I think that the key thing to mention here is that this is really an ecosystem approach to financing energy solutions in Madagascar. So we really take the full sweep from initial startup incubation all the way to mature stage. And the key thing we want to achieve is, of course, many millions of people accessing energy in Madagascar and preserving the ecology there. But also we want to achieve leverage and really crowd in investment both on the private side and the public side. So UNCDF has a mandate among UN agencies to play a role here. And I think in particular, when we look at two areas of financing that can typically be used for energy companies, such as the ones here, are SME finance and project finance of different type of tools. So we're working with UNDP to set up a de-risking facility. It doesn't have a lot of capital, so we want to try and be catalytic and showcase some interesting deals that will hopefully spur others to come in. We know there are already institutions in Madagascar that are looking at things like the National Fund for Sustainable Energy, the National Bank for Energy, and so on, TAMA. We want to also collaborate with these national partners to really build a total ecosystem approach to financing programs. Now, in particular, UNCDF has a mandate beyond grants to do loans and guarantees. We're not able to do equity at this stage, but I think I should just mention a few of the specific tools that we can bring to the table that might be interesting for companies such as yourselves. First of all, we provide unsecured lending. We do look at small deals. We do provide local currency financing. I think these are very key elements we bring to the table and are not common actually in the financing landscape right now. Then we also have on the loan side, I think flexible approaches to amortization and pricing. We are able to extend grace periods to medium long terms that I think are very critical for many energy investments. And also we are able to take up junior positions in terms of credit structure. So when something goes bad, we are almost like a first loss or sort of a junior position that will allow others maybe to get their money back first, and hopefully will therefore crowd in others. On the guarantee side, we do, of course, pari passu guarantee, but we can also take higher guarantee positions for very risky investments. But I think one thing that is particularly interesting, and I can refer very briefly and describe it later maybe to a case in the Gambia, where we provide a volume guarantee, which essentially is that we provide a guarantee for offtake. So whoever your offtake clients is, if they're not able to pay, we are actually there to guarantee that cash flow. So those are some of the things I think we can bring to the table, and we hope to really provide something that is suitable for companies such as yourselves. We have to start small, but we hope that we can be catalytic and provide interesting examples. So I'll keep it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. With that, you've heard about the ecosystem. And I think the additional information we got here is also trying to address one of the questions raised yesterday by James, crowding in the private sector for investment. And this is attempted by, as a end outcome, reaching more people, like our private sector colleagues said, but also leveraging more funding beyond what we have. The SDG fund is a catalytic fund, but the collaboration with partners, local partners, is one aspect that was mentioned. And also that very interesting aspect of local currency lending, which is also a challenge that was mentioned yesterday. So as you can see, this program is quite innovative on its own from a Madagascar perspective, because it's attempting to really have that ecosystem that will fill in a major gap so that we can address the sustainable energy sector development. Now, I know the time is counted. I want to give a chance to the participant for a couple of questions. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. It was very, very interesting presentation, and I think I have 6 questions, but I won't ask all of them.
Please send in the questions later on.
In email.
Time to also interact after this.
No, of course, I know. So for me, I would like to know a little bit more from the last speaker about the fund itself. And for me, I'm really interested in public funds and supporting governments in setting up their own funding mechanisms that are there to direct. So for me, my question is where the fund is placed, and then how you assure the transparency and and the accountability that that it's needed. If you can say that, I don't know if that's public information, but also how the fund will work with the commercial banks and how the system is set up. What type of, I think you touch on the type of guarantees, and but what is their size, or if there is any specificity that you would like to say about the mechanism, about the instruments that you choose to use for that particular fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there another question? No? I'll give a chance to diversity.
No, if you want to add something, it's okay.
No, please go. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, she can, as she has a mic, she can go ahead.
Okay. One more question. He's very gallant.
Thank you very much. So my second question was more on the aspect of the two private investments, and I'm working with Zambia, and they're also very much interested to see if they can use cassava for biofuel. So I would like to know if and what is cheaper for the end user, or what is the strategy, because it seems like to be a very different investment into the energy. So if there is something that you can say about that could also help us to learn from your experience that you already have, comparing the solar energy and the biofuel from products like cassava. And my also other question is that scaling up from the product that it's also staple crop for the country. It's how do you assure that you will have enough volumes, and who will produce the product, the cassava, the raw material? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A question to Vincent, and then another question to the private sector colleagues. And last.
Yeah, they already have so many questions. So, but mine would be really to thank you very well. I think that you have created, even with this panel, an ecosystem that is tackling all the areas, both on the regulatory side, on the capacity building side, on the financing side. And also, I'm very happy to see that UNCDF also is used, because this is a unique UN agency within the UN development system. They have a mandate of loans, even on guarantee and other aspects. And I, frankly speaking, I just want to add really one point. Yesterday we talked about this on lending in local currency. As a benevolent, I did something with a Swiss foundation. We put a time deposit in the Swiss Bank Corporation, and the Swiss Bank Corporation will issue first a letter of signature that will be sent to local banks, and local banks will provide loans in local currency to local actors. And it was as a benevolent to support NGOs from Latin America and Africa. And I set it up, and I was a first president for 3 years before stepping down. And we had a leverage of 16, so meaning $1 that we put in SBC, we managed to unlock $16 equivalent in local currency in Africa, and 42 in Latin America. This was the challenge I was referring to. So I think that even that one was working, and UNCDF did try it in West Africa. They put time deposit in 4 West African banks to use it on a declining balance to guarantee the risk, and it was a way that also worked. So I just want to say that this is really a great example of building in a very important energy, and I want to thank the resident coordinator for really bringing in such ecosystem, and I'm sure that with all our support, if Max and others will get the required support to move ahead.
Thank you, Big Brother Fode. I think we are hearing the voice of wisdom, the voice of experience. We, as Madagascar, we can always look up to those who do have that experience as we go back. Let's keep that in mind to reach out to great examples like this, where clearly the time deposit can be a good way of mitigating risk. And it's already good to hear from Vincent that the aspect of mobilizing loans in local currency is something which is embedded in the project. So with that, and I know Massimo is indeed one of what they call today the performance sort of police. He is on our back. And
Inquisitor.
Exactly. So I think we are in good hands to make sure we'll make it work. With that, I want to give the floor first to Vincent. Yes, Vincent, to address the question of our participant, and then to our 2 private sector colleagues before we take maybe one more question, because I'm also looking at time. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and if we can achieve anything remotely close to Mr. Fode's, leverage ratios, we would be very happy, of course. But to come to your questions, it's a very small fund. We have actually only about $4 million in this risk facility, de-risking facility. Both it's a mix of loans, guarantees, and grants. I think the way we will approach this is really by having an interaction both with the doers, the energy companies, to see what kind of instrument is most appropriate for their particular financing situation, balance sheet, and so on, and where they require the financing. But then also to see how we can effectively leverage support from banks. So, if it is possible for us to structure a guarantee and crowd in financing, that would be fantastic news. In some cases, we may be more forced to do direct loans to achieve a similar outcome. It is a small fund, so we will be key to get some deals out quite quickly and to generate some excitement, and to together go with others to expand the total envelope of financing. And there are many others. I mean, there is a World Bank initiative with the Bamboo Fund for 10 million. There's a AFD Sunref Fund working with local banks on financing for $12 million. And then finally the IETP for 18 million. So these are all, let's say, financing initiatives which we plan to work with very closely. We think we occupy space in the more risky area and sort of the more advanced area. And then maybe some of the more conservative mainstream come in after, once we have demonstrated some proof of concept. So I hope that answers part of your question.
Thank you. And if, Madam, you are not happy, they are available today and tomorrow. So we can run after them until you get the right answer. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to leave to give the floor to Mr. Zhu.
Excuse me, the first question is, how do we secure the volume of cassava? And the second one is?
One is solar and second is bioenergy. For the home cooking, I think that was the common kind of, common part where I think both are also addressing the same same customer. What is cheaper for the customer, if that is possible to estimate?
Okay. First, to ensure the volume, we are producing a part of the needs, and the second, and to help the farmer to produce, we use something very standard. We call Coopérative d'utilisateurs de machines agricoles, CUMA. It's cooperative of for farmer. In fact, we put machinery to allow them to produce. They produce what they want. We just ask them to produce a certain quantity of cassava, and they can produce the other product if they want. What is cheaper, solar or ethanol? If for cooking, of course, it's ethanol. It's easier. Then if you want to produce light, because you can produce light by burning ethanol, it's more clever and more efficient to use sunlight.
Yeah, just to complement that, I think that those are two different sources of production of energy, but then those are two different purposes in terms of usage. Bioethanol is a thermal use, whereas solar is used for production of electricity. So the end users or the end customers wouldn't be the same. And when I was talking about electric cooking being introduced within our mini-grid projects, it's just that in the areas where we are building these mini-grids and providing electricity for many different kind of uses, we know that households or population is still using charcoal or wood for cooking. So because we're providing electricity, we try to bring them to the path of shifting the use towards a cleaner solution, which would be an electrical device that is plugged on the grid and that doesn't need charcoal or wood anymore. And we are working on those business models to make sure that they can access those pre-financing to get access to those electrical devices, and then that the cost of using the cooking device remains competitive while using the electricity in comparison to using charcoal in the past. And we know that this is the tricky aspect of the model, but we're working on that. And if you're asking about pricing of solar electricity, this is also a very important topic, because you have to keep in mind that producing electricity and distributing to an end customer falls down under the regulatory framework. So we have to comply with the regulatory framework when it comes to setting up tariffs. And even though some private companies do not respect that and propose tariffs that go beyond $1, even up to $4, we do think that it's not possible to go that way. So if we want to keep affordable tariffs for affordable services, so that most of the population can access to it and benefit from it, we need blended finance and use grants as a leverage, not only for attracting investors, but also to bring the tariffs down to a level where it is affordable for the population. And if you want numbers, I can also tell you them.
Thank you very much. We are getting to the end. Just note that there is a political economy of the energy sector when you want to reach the maximum. And that's what she was sort of alluding to. The government's role in bringing some of those subsidies, the blended finance, etc., are some of the things that actually help make it viable. But we don't only look at the price, we look at the outcome. If you are alleviating poverty, the reach of this is outweighing the cost. I want to maybe give you a chance, each of you, 1 minute, if you, it's really a challenge, 1 minute. What is the key message you want our audience to live with? I'm going to start with Mrs. Vol. 1 minute.
1 minute, a challenge. Thank you. I think that allow me to get back once again to those two words, scalability and sustainability. I think we have the SDG fund, which is used as the leverage, the catalyst, but also it's a learning process not only for us as UN, but also for all our partners. So let us keep in mind those two words. Thank you.
For me, now it's time to turn our short vision into reality. It's time to become operational to achieve the SDG. The challenge are very high, with very ambitious objectives, and the deadline is very close. To finish, I would like to express my sincere thanks to SDG Fund and the United Nations. I very much look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
There are many key points that I'd like to emphasize, but I know I only have one. So I'll just say that it's been a very interesting and rich journey these past days, having this conversation, and I just look forward for having more conversation where maybe private sector doers, financiers, institutions will have more time and opportunities to actually dialogue and discuss all together, to learn from each other and to build more adapted, more efficient mechanisms and facilities for the future.
She stole what I was about to say. Okay, in another life I've been consultant on quality, and when we are talking about quality, everybody knows what is Demin-Will. Demin-Will is talking about PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, and you have to learn from what you did, whatever, if it's a success or it's fail. So let's make the Demin-Will of the SDG turn. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one word will be as we have tools in place now. We have the instruments. So the most important thing is now to the willingness to go forward and to go together to implement this project. Yeah, thank you.
I think trying to solve the SDGs requires hands-on attitude and approach. The people with the hands-on approach are the doers. So my takeaway message is, let's support the doers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, dear audience, thank you. This session is coming to an end, but this is not the end of the journey. The journey is only starting with the SDG Fund, and I really invite you all to gear up so that we can make it not just a 7 million project. We are not interested in that. We want a 80 million project, And that calls on the private sector and everybody else's hands on deck to make it happen. Thank you again.
And then you would have to wander in the theater room, which is the other tented pavilion. So thanks a lot and thanks again. Thank you. May I invite the team from Ghana to the stage. Peter.
The other women were also, and they announced that we are going to pavilion. So I was confused.
There's just a check. So just give a few seconds for the panel to join. Also, people I think are moving around rooms. So let's take a couple of minutes. And I ask the panelists to join the sitting arrangement. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Please sit.
I can use my laptop.
Or for you have a presentation?
Briefly, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I'll need it back.
Yeah. And who is chairing this session?
You can do it. Oh, I can just hold it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
just
okay.
if you want to show it or not.
Okay. Yeah. But I'll move.
So thank you very much for coming to the session. And we are going to look at Ghana's investment-led recovery approach, the raft of investment opportunities in Ghana. And we'll demonstrate a couple of them to you. And as you see, how we can whet your appetite and attract your interest into investing in Ghana. So as they fix the presentation, the session will be led by our resident coordinator, Charles Abani, as I invite him to take his seat. And then also by our team from the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Afriyie. I'll join the session myself, moderating until we are done. We are here to answer your questions and to have a favorable discussion. Are we okay?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charles Abani, and just to state that I know that some of you are expecting this session to be a further deep dive on the Basic Sanitation Fund, which we talked a bit about yesterday. Some of the technical personnel to do that aren't available, and so we've pivoted in true innovation style to use the opportunity of the presence here of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, who are here to really talk both broadly but specifically about a couple of options for investments. Ghana has really adopted an investments-led strategy to recovery from COVID-19. And I think there are a raft of government programs that support this. In the way that the UN has engaged in this whole area, we see a number of enabling environment actions that are necessary to enable investors to find the space in Ghana. We also are keen to ensure that there are opportunities that really build a true multi-sectoral partnership that the UN in Ghana is seeking to promote. And it's in that context that we are presenting these options to you today. We very much left it to GIPC to pick them, but actually have told them to stick particularly around a sector, while giving you a backcloth of the flavor of how the government of Ghana is approaching this, both through the relevant Ministry of Finance and Planning, but also through Ghana Investment Promotion Center, which I guess is the gateway into Ghana for these kinds of conversations. And so Yao Afriyie, who is the Deputy CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, will lead this. And rather than me lead the charge on behalf of Ghana, very often we ask whether governments are actually ready for investors. I think it's probably best that we all hear from Yao. So while you sort this out, maybe technical issues, but I'm sure you can speak to them in the interim, conscious of time. So thank you, and you're welcome, and we hope you find some interesting entry points for engagement with Ghana. Over to you, Yao.
Thank you, Charles and Peter from the UN Ghana team. It's a delight for us to be here representing the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, and I stand on all the existing protocols to welcome each of you to the session. So just a bit of a background. So the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, is the presentation up? Okay, that's fine. So the Ghana Investment Promotion Center is the principal investment promotion agency of the government of Ghana. We are backed by robust legislation that essentially allows us to go into the marketplace to mobilize foreign capital to support our numerous development objectives. We're also focused on building a number of prospects within the local direct investment space, and therefore we have a twin objective of attracting and retaining foreign capital, but also encouraging local businesses and local entrepreneurs to play within the Ghanaian economy. So that's broadly what we do. We are also a regulator. No. Not working. Okay. Right. So, great. So we are also a regulator. Beg your pardon. Can you give it to my assistant, please? Thank you. So we are also a regulator in that when foreign capital comes to Ghana, we ensure that that capital complies with our investment laws and the rules and regulations that govern our activities in the country. We have a number of priority sectors which the Ministry of Finance, in conjunction with ourselves and other government agencies, obviously led by His Excellency the President's vision, have earmarked as key sectors for foreign investors to do business. That includes manufacturing, it includes healthcare, tourism, housing, water and sanitation, agric, and within that processing and agri-tech, and all the innovations within that sector, and lastly, manufacturing. And all of these sectors have one thing in common. GIPC is trying to drive impact and sustainability within that sector, and we've heard over the last 2 days this term being bandied around, blended finance. So we are looking at a number of finance options, mezzanine, debt, equity, traditional commercial financing, as well as DFI and impact financing to be able to address some of the challenges that we have in this sector. I really wish our presentation could come up so that we can provide the context properly.
While we wait for that, you might talk around the general principles.
Sure. So I hope that background is sufficient, even though I haven't finished. But I think more specifically, that's fine. We'll proceed. Thank you. That is fine. So I think. long as you have the right to. But we see this is a new laptop, so it's
No HDMI.
no HDMI. It's a bit of a challenge, eh? No problem. I can send it to you after. Sure, whatever works. Whatever works. Okay. So I think, Charles, to continue, given that government has a huge focus on these very important sectors, in 2019, the government, during the ravages of the COVID pandemic, established the Ghana COVID-19 Alleviation and Revitalization of Enterprises Support program, which in short is CARES. And that essentially captures the government's short to medium and long-term approach to mitigating the impact of the pandemic and ensuring that our recovery is investment-led. And the CARES program, by design, is sustainable and ensures that there is impact within all the key sectors. And we're hoping as GIPC to lead this investment case to our traditional partners in Europe and North America and the Middle East, but also to some of our partners here in Africa, including our multilateral partners and DFI partners, to ensure that we build resilience into our economy. Okay, so this is just a general business. Okay. I think, so just go back. Right. Right, so I think I've given you just a brief of what GIPC does. Just to reiterate, we are the leading government agency responsible for mobilizing foreign direct investment into the country. And we also promote local direct investments. So that is what our government legislation allows us to do. We work with a number of collaborating institutions. We occupy, if you like, a helicopter, a bird's eye view within the government structure, in that we work with all ministries, departments, and agencies, and essentially anything that is investment-driven, investment-led, which also requires compliance and regulation is part of our mandate. And these are some of our supporting agencies. That's fine. So these are some of the priority sectors that I've already spoken about. So within infrastructure, we're looking at value addition, transformative within railway, transportation, within schools, which is a major priority for the government. In fact, it's a flagship policy in Ghana, which is the free senior high school education, which is one of the key tenets of this administration and feeds in perfectly with the sustainable development goals and what we're trying to achieve in terms of sustainability and long-term impact. The perennial issues to do with hospitals and deficits within our part of the world is something which is obviously manifestly clear. The government is also trying to ensure that private financing supported by public sector financing can close the gap in building hospital infrastructure, but also training and ensuring that the care aspect is also taken care of. And of course, bridges, roads, and hard infrastructure is a priority. Of course, agric and agri-processing continues to be top of the agenda. And recently, tourism and ecotourism, aquaculture is featuring quite prominently within government's agenda. Manufacturing is a critical tenet of what this government is seeking to do. One of the flagship policies is called One District, One Factory, which is essentially a very audacious industrialization drive across the country, seeking to place functioning factories in each of the districts of the country. And we also recognize that the industrialization drive is essentially redundant if the raw materials of the country is not properly harnessed. And being harnessed in a sustainable way, working with companies and funds that have a long-term approach, that have a commitment to ESG, impact and sustainability. And we're trying to extract our bauxite, iron ore, gold to ensure that it augments our industrialization objectives. Next slide. And these are, I'll just run through these very quickly. So as part of our regulatory requirements, we require you to register with the Registrar General's Department, which is a sister agency. And then as part of the steps, you have to declare a minimum equity commitment to doing business in Ghana. Once that has been verified by the Bank of Ghana, which is our central bank, and in turn, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, you will then receive your GIPC certificate within 5 working days. And that is a statutory commitment that we are committed to meet and have been meeting over the years. Now, this is the thorny issue, which government recognizes that there has to be broad consensus to be able to reform. But currently, as we have on our books, the minimum equity ratios look something like this. So for a JV partnership, for a foreign JV partnership with a Ghanaian, the Ghanaian partner should have a minimum of 10% in that structure. And you're supposed to bring in $200,000 US to register in the country to be able to qualify for that. And needless to say, the equity requirements can be registered in cash or in kind. So if you are an agric company, a manufacturing company, pharmaceuticals company, whatever sector that you have, you can bring your plants and machinery through our ports, verified through a very elaborate system through GIPC to register that equity as part of your foreign equity to do business in Ghana. And the second is $500,000 for a wholly foreign company operating in Ghana, and $1 million US for any trading activity for doing business in Ghana. And needless to say, that 1 million is contingent on the company hiring 20 skilled Ghanaians to be able to participate in that venture. There are some exemptions, however, given that we are talking about funds and funds of funds and other portfolio kinds of investments. We recognize that in a difficult environment to attract and retain quality investment and portfolio investment, we cannot be taxing portfolio capital. And so portfolio investments are exempted from these equity requirements, as well as manufacturing and any export traded enterprises. And this is particularly noteworthy given our recent focus and energy into ensuring that the Continental Free Trade Area as a commercial vehicle for Africa succeeds. And then if you are a foreign spouse of a Ghanaian citizen, you're also exempted, and any dual nationals are also exempted. Next slide. There are some expatriate quotas. I'll run through these very quickly. So depending on your paid up capital, as you can see on the screen, you're eligible for certain people to come and man your business. And so for any equity above $700,000, you are eligible for 4 persons to work within your organization. But we recognize that that number might be slightly low, small, given that some companies might want to scale up quickly. And therefore, you can use other avenues such as the time-bound work permit, which is granted by our sister agency, the Ghana Immigration Service, to be able to bring foreign expertise to be able to man your plants and your company as may be necessary. I think this is the juicy part for investors. We have a number of investment incentives in the country. So as a signatory to MIGA and other multilateral compliance documents, not least sorry, I beg your pardon. So I've spoken about MIGA, and we're also signatories to some of the EU protocols. We're signatories to some of the UN protocols and charters and ECOWAS, etc., which means that there is a guarantee against expropriation. And the reason why there's a guarantee against expropriation is because of our bitter history, post-colonial history, as many of you know, where companies would be expropriated and sold off and carved out, etc. In our current dispensation, as a forward-looking country, as a progressive country ready for investment, we guarantee against expropriation. There are also customs duty exemptions on plants, machineries, and equipment. And the important aspect in all of this equation is that when you put your $1 in Ghana, you stand fully compensated in terms of repatriating that capital or your dividends to your home country or to your lenders. Of course, you're also allowed to transfer funds in respect of servicing your foreign loans. Of course, a number of you in this room, syndicate capital to be able to deploy for projects. And therefore, when that time comes to service those important loans, you can make those calls to the Bank of Ghana, get Gipc certification, and take that money out of the country without any hassle. Of course, you can also transfer funds after liquidation. We've talked about the immigrant quotas and time-bound work permits. The next slide. There are also additional incentives, and I see these as part of the cascading incentives that we have in Ghana. So yes, we've talked about the plants and machineries and other incentives, but these are additional incentives that companies and investors can enjoy. Given how choked our urban areas are, particularly Accra, which is the political and commercial capital of Ghana, we are seeking to, as it were, move companies outside of that cluster. And therefore, the further north you go, the better tax incentives you get. So for example, if you occupy, if you're doing business in the 5 northern regions of the country, essentially you stand to get a corporate tax rate of 5%, which is very generous. If you want to do business within the Accra metropolis, it's 20%. Of course, I think this slide is particularly relevant given that we're talking about sustainability and impact and so on. So as you can see, just some examples here of the sectors and the kind of concessionary rates that can be enjoyed by these companies. So I'll just take 2 as an example. So within agro-processing and livestock, for example, there is a concessionary period of 5 years where you enjoy 1% concessionary rate. And after that, five years, there is a fixed rate of 25%. For tree crop farming, there is a 10-year concessionary rate, which is enjoyed by companies, and 25 years thereafter. And for venture capital financing, there is a 10-year moratorium, 1%, which is very generous, which is very competitive globally, that companies enjoy, and thereafter 25%. I think we've spoken about some of these. And the last point is about strategic investments. Now, strategic investments in Ghana essentially means any company that wants to come in and invest $50 million or above. Now, those companies stand to negotiate a number of incentives with GIPC and by extension the government. So the company brings a wish list of areas that they want rebates, areas that they want to be looked at, and then we take that wish list, review it, it goes to the board, it has the validation of the president, and in turn Parliament. So a number of the big hoteliers in Ghana, a number of the big, great companies, the large pharmaceuticals who are operating, many of these companies operate under the Strategic Investment Initiative. And so if there are companies here, whether it's portfolio or direct investments that seek a larger ticket size, 50 million and above, we are happy to discuss a number of specific incentives packages to ensure your business succeeds. I think that is that. And I know we're running out of time. So everything that we're doing essentially is captured under the Ghana Cares program. And that is a 100 billion cedi program that is largely investment driven. So 30 billion of that, which is equivalent to almost 4 billion US dollars, came in to support and mitigate the immediate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So essentially, government paid subsidized household utility bills and ensure that businesses were able to, as it were, stand firm and weather the COVID-19 storm. But since then, there has been a recalibration of our efforts. So we recognize that 70 billion cedis, which is equivalent to about $9 billion, should be mobilized into the country. Now the question is, how do we do that? We do it either through taxes, through taxation, through exports, or through investments. And taxation is a difficult political thorny issue for any government, and so that has taken a back burner of sorts. Export, given our current dispensation, has been incredibly difficult, and therefore the likes of GIPC and others have to go out into the market to bring them money, which is why I'm looking at you, sir. So 9 billion has to come into the country between 2020 and 2024. Now the question is, which are the sectors and how do we do that? So the sectors of focus, according to central government, which is not too dissimilar to our sectors of focus, is in manufacturing, is in healthcare, is in agric, is in ICT and communications, housing, energy, infrastructure, water sanitation, services, and tourism. And this list did not come about, wishfully. It came about as a backdrop to what we're doing in terms of complying with SDGs and ensuring that any capital that comes into the country has a long-term impact in terms of development. So our target currently as GIPC is that we are seeking to bring in $3 billion annually between now and 2024. We are doing so because, frankly, Ghana presents a unique investment case, not least because of what I've said, but because we operate a very stable, predictable, democratic environment. We have a robust legal system so that disputes can be settled within our jurisdiction, and we also have international protocols that allows disputes to be escalated into other jurisdictions. There's a talented pool, labor pool. Proximity-wise, we have excellent proximity to Europe and to markets, which ensures that your manufacturing and your export-led business strategy fits right into what we are trying to do in Ghana. And of course, that is augmented by the recent establishment of the Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Accra, with a youthful population of over 800 million, total combined population of 1.4 billion, and a total GDP of 3.4 trillion. Now, in trying to build back better, our president, President Akufo-Addo, who is the co-chair of the Eminent Group of 16, has said that we need competitive financing for our development needs. Now, how then do we do that? So far, government has integrated the SDGs into our national budgetary processes. I believe that we're the second country after Mexico to implement that. And so far, some of the coordinated programs have been to do with the free senior high school education, which qualifies for the SDG 4, SDG 1, 5, and 10, the Planting for Food and Jobs program, which is another flagship program, the One District, One Factory. But in recognizing the financing gap, we also are agnostic, frankly. We are looking for capital to bridge greenfield investment, brownfield investment, and we're also looking for portfolio investment with an impact and a DFI angle to be able to sit within Ghana. And as GIPC, over the last 12 months, we have been working collaboratively with the UNDP to build what we call the SDG investor map in critical sectors. And so we are prioritizing housing and infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing, consumer goods, ICT, and health. And this investor map specifically showcases the viable and bankable opportunities within Ghana, within those priority sectors, to attract and retain quality foreign direct investment. And we're also doing this not just focused on our major urban centers. We want this to be regional in nature, and as part of that mandate, we are broadening our regional sensitization of the entire country to ensure that businesses at the local level tell us their needs, and so we're not making policy essentially in vain. And when we do that, we also collate the investment criteria, the investment needs of these companies to be able to match make with our multilateral partners and our commercial partners. But of course, this is becoming increasingly difficult. We understand that there are a number of global pressures, not least global inflationary pressures. There's a cost of living crisis, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and other implications to do with the US-China trade wars. And therefore, funds and pools of capital trying to come to Ghana, and in fact, Africa, you don't have to think critically about what the prospects are. And at GIPC and Ghana as a whole, we are building and revamping our projects catalog. I'm not sure whether we can show one of the two of those catalogs. Anyway, the email didn't come. I don't think the email came. Okay, that's fine.
I was going to suggest to you that Peter, maybe you can talk a bit about some of the opportunities that
on the investor map. So thank you very much, Yao. That was good. So I know you definitely be looking out for what are the real market indicators for the opportunities that he's talking about. So for instance, when you take affordable housing, all the projects are currently at feasibility stages, and it's able to offer a market size of 1.7 million housing units over a 5-year period. And the current indicative return is between 20 to 25 IRR. When you pick electronic waste recycling, that also has the objective to reduce environmental impact of e-waste and to foster circular economy. And that has a market size of $100 million to $1 billion. And it offers a return in the range between 15 to 20%. A lot of them up to about 13 projects. When you take the road construction and maintenance, offering more than 25% return with more than $1 billion market size. You look at sanitation services, and we presented one component of the project, which has gone through the proof of concept to feasibility preparation stage to a proposal that we presented to you yesterday. Within the entire sanitation test sector, we are expecting to have over $1 billion investment in terms of market size, and also promises to give more than 25% return. I will jump there and go to food systems. And currently, you know, that is the key global indicator now, the call for all countries to implement agroecological initiatives to ensure that we are able to mitigate the impact of the current global crisis on food systems. For our investor opportunities, we have agricultural inputs and products, and that is also offering possible investor returns in the range between 20 to 25%, and a market size between $100 to $1 billion. We have post-harvest losses, initiatives, and then initiative to also improve food availability, fish breeding, grain storage infrastructure. And I give you the broader market size between $100 million and then $1 billion. And then investor returns in the range of 20 to 25%. I will jump to e-healthcare, and that also has the objective to provide cost-effective access to healthcare services, through remote services, through e-services, so that you're able to send healthcare to remote communities. And the offer also there is between $100 million to $1 billion, and return in the range of 20 to 25%. So these are the few that I could highlight. Over to you, Yao.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to get your presentation up here, but once again, we're having some challenges. So as my colleague has rightly mentioned, there are two broad categories of projects. So he has really mentioned the government and the PPP aspect of that requirement. That tends to be from $50 million to $1 billion plus. And then there are also, smaller ticket items. So these tend to be more private led. That can be from any range of $50,000 to $50 million. And these companies tend to be occupying the MSME space and also the large category space. So just a couple of examples that we have. So there are some good opportunities in manufacturing of puree, starch, and flour. So the project size is $6 million. It's in the Volta region of Ghana. It's a greenfield project, and currently they have gone through feasibility and are in execution phase. So essentially, they're looking for joint venture partners. And so, if this category of company or sector is something that you would like to discuss further, I'll be on standby to share further details. We also have a rice and rice flour production project, and we understand that there's a huge deficit, not just in Ghana, but across Africa, in terms of rice demand and production. This company is in the Akuse region, Akuse of Ghana, which is the eastern region of Ghana, which requires investment amount of $5 million. Again, is to scale up, and so it's your typical brownfield project that would be ripe for some of our more commercial-minded companies here. And once again, given our focus on joint ventureship, this will come under a JV structure. They have been in operation for the last 3 years, and so they have been executing. They have a number of local brands. One is called Mr. Rabbit, which I have personally had the opportunity to try. We also have some pharmaceutical opportunities. There is the Mikado Laboratories Limited, which is an excellent company, looking for an injection of just over $2 million to scale up their factory to ensure that some basic installations are done. And essentially, this is a quick win because they just really want machinery augmentation for their plant. And this is in the Tema Industrial Enclave, which enjoys a number of incentives there. We also have a coconut husks recycling factory. This is in the Awutu Senya district, central region, so proximity-wise from Accra is just about 2 hours drive. So essentially, it's a waste recycling facility. They are in the market for $10 million. So there are two parts to this project. So one is a greenfield project, so they really seek to establish another project to feed the recycling plant, and then the other is the current plant which needs a bit of upgrade. And so this is a nice blended mix of capital that can solve some of these problems. Just a couple of more examples because I seem to have quite a bit. So there is in manufacturing with this company in the market for just $2 million. So they want to manufacture PVC pipes, and this really is to augment the water and sanitation sector. And this is an excellent brownfield opportunity that those funds here, I'm sure, would be happy for me to discuss further.
Thank you, Yao. And again, I know the focus of this presentation is slightly different from what you were expecting, which is a bit more of detail on the basic sanitation fund itself and some of the structures around that. But we've taken the opportunity to, I guess, present a wider field of opportunities within Ghana, and I guess enable the Gateway Agency to be able to present out here to you. So I don't know whether there are any immediate questions that we need to broker or hear from. Maybe some of the challenges that more broadly both investors and those within the UN system have experienced in terms of engaging with and around government. But also, I think some specific questions about models rather than the sort of general level here. So I think we should open that out. As I'd explained yesterday in our presentation, we are much more early phase, particularly around the 13 opportunities that were identified through the investor maps with support from the MPTF on financing. A lot more work needs to go into that in order to actually generate specific opportunities. And so we'd welcome early, if you like, early adopters to join us in that process as well. So let's open the floor, conscious that this session is already overrunning if we look at the overall day.
Okay.
Peter.
So I got a question on the cross-border difficulties, because I know Ghana, like Kenya, has been a part and signed the Africa Continental Free Trade Areas. But and I know, yeah, you are getting into some detailing of the difficulties that Africa faces. So if I cannot trade with my partner, like for example, Kenya cannot trade with Uganda, or whatever I produce cannot be consumed into the neighboring country and can only be consumed into the country where the production is happening. What are some of the measures that Ghana has taken into place to make sure that these barriers or these bottlenecks have been addressed? Because it's good on paper, but when it comes to the real thing, trading within Africa is so difficult.
Maybe you can take two more and then you address all.
Thank you. My question really is on, are there any local hedging mechanisms that your agency is working on? Because some of the external hedging pricing we are seeing coming externally makes investing in local currency in Ghana expensive. So are there any domestic mechanisms that you're working to attract local currency investments?
I'll certainly let Yao respond to the hedging question, and it's particularly relevant in the current context where we've seen the Ghana cedi actually depreciate significantly against the US dollar. But coming back to the broader question around Africa Continental Free Trade and I guess non-tariff and tariff-related barriers, I can share with you just from the experience of some of our engagements that a number of the initiatives that seem to be succeeding are using the framework but operating bilaterally. And so I'm aware of small companies who are working from Ethiopia, taking coffee into Ghana and cocoa back to Ethiopia, where they're particularly working quite hard now to address some of those particularly the tariff-related issues, because a number of the countries are struggling with domestic resource generation on the one hand, and then freeing up the marketplace in order to remove tariffs. And particularly around, if you like, mainstay exports, this is an issue. But I know that dialogue is taking place, and the Ethiopia example is one that I can give you. The other pointer would be UNCTAD and the work of UNCTAD, particularly located within the AFCTA Secretariat, to really support a process of addressing non-tariff related barriers, transportation, access to the country, immigration, customs issues. And again, we can make a referral to you to that particular unit who work on those particular issues as Africa Continental Free Trade is trying to do that. Just to say that last week as well, the World Trade Promotion Organization's global conference took place in Ghana. And AFTA was very much a part of that whole process. And so there were a number of key recommendations made around accelerating exactly what you're talking about, opportunities to enable businesses to engage across borders. Yao, do you have any specific responses, either to AFTA and maybe to the issues of hedging? I know that, yeah. Particularly when it comes to repatriating profits out of the country in the current context.
So Chatham House rules is a very difficult question, and I think it's one slightly above my pay grade, but I'm aware that the Bank of Ghana is having a serious consultative session, particularly with the local banks whose minimum capital ratios were increased, I think, in 2018 to $100 million. We recognize that there's a size problem when it comes to local hedging, which is why the likes of Stanbic, Standard Chartered, APSA, if you like, the multinational banking corporations tend to take a lead in this respect. Very pricey, very costly exercise to do. But of course, I'm not naive to the fact that there's been a number of FX risk and volatility over the last at least 6 months since the start of the year. And one of the issues that we face is on transfer pricing, and when it comes to the thorny issue of technology transfer agreements and repatriating the profits that the companies have registered against the macroeconomic backdrop. So I understand the complexity. I can't give you a direct answer, I'm afraid. But Bank of Ghana, I'm aware, is trying to stem that issue predominantly with the local banks. And I'm happy to engage you one-on-one as and when there is a clear way forward. Yeah, I hope that satisfies you. And on the question of the trading, certainly, again, the Continental Free Trade Area requires all the member states to adopt all the enabling protocols to function. Right. So yes, Ghana has the commercial capital, and Ghana is trying to accelerate its lobbying of member states to adopt those protocols. And if truly they can be adopted within the next year or two, within a 10-year time frame, as you're all well aware, there'll be a gradual and incremental shift to a tariff-free AfCFTA. Now, obviously, that is a political economy question and a diplomacy question for our partners. But certainly, what we are trying to do in Ghana is to ensure that Ghanaian companies have a competitive advantage. Not just Ghanaian companies, but companies that register in Ghana that want to use Ghana as a pivot into this market have an advantage. And so there are instruments like the Ghana Exim Bank, which has been set up, which works in tandem with the likes of Indian Exim, the US Exim, to provide that concessionary export credit financing to be able to close that gap, therefore making obviously your products more competitive in other African markets. Certainly, we as also as an import country recognize that there are some tariff barriers to doing business, which is why the likes of the Ghana Export Promotion Agency, working with the likes of GIPC through some of the incentives that we provide, ensure that at least your operational cost can come down slightly. So these are just some of the measures that government is trying to put in place.
So here you go. Any more questions? Great.
Because mine might be detouring a bit, I'm more on the well-being side, good health and well-being. And today I've heard a lot about, from what I've heard, Ghana is very big on food. And so I want to bring the aspect of sports, because that's where I lie. So I wanted to know, as someone interested in sports, I do sports in Kenya, and most of the people who may want to invest in my company, I always ask, which other country can you partner with? So I wanted to know how is the uptake of clubs maybe, or sports institutions in Ghana, and are they open to partnerships, both aiming at getting interest and those that are just grants? I've not had anything in that line, and I would be interested.
So, I mean, certainly what I could tell you is that there are opportunities. 2023 is Ghana is hosting
All African Games.
The All African Games, and so certainly the Minister of Youth and Sports has been particularly keen to follow this line, and is very interested. And so we should definitely connect your details and put you in touch with him. And indeed, there are conversations about how to leverage some of the finance needed into the All Africa Games next year, which are already underway, and some of them are infrastructure related, but also service related, and they will provide opportunities as well. So certainly worth talking about that. That's kind of from my perspective as resident coordinator, but yeah, you may have some other ideas too.
Yeah, I think, historically our sports focus has been on football. But recently, there has been a realization, a eureka moment, that actually football doesn't actually generate the dividend that we need, and a transformative agenda for the entire sporting community. And so this new minister who was appointed recently is focused on using other instruments. For example, the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, whose mandate is really for infrastructure, but we're seeing how the Ghana Infrastructure Fund and other private funding agencies within the country can help bring private capital to meet sporting needs. And so I know there is a number of focus. So he's focused on tennis, He's focused on golf, and he's also focused on Paralympics, and to ensure that we can compete at the highest stage when it comes to that level. But certainly at GIPC, historically, the truth is we haven't focused so heavily on sports investment. It's something that we are trying to review. I think yesterday my chief executive met with one of the biggest funders, sorry, the largest capital pools supporting the Ghana Black Stars. And so I know that there are a number of discussions happening to see how we can focus on the sporting agenda, because it's something that the president is incredibly passionate about. And in terms of our soft power and our image globally, it's an area that, frankly, we cannot neglect. And I know that the new Minister of Sport is trying to diversify his approach, certainly from a policy standpoint, moving incrementally away from football, which has taken up a lot of money, into other, if you like, non-traditional sports, golf, tennis, and Paralympics. And we stand ready for those partnerships if you can present those avenues. Yeah?
Just to say, when you talk of sports, it depends on the area and your competitive advantage. Football, though, that's moving away in terms of government investment. But in the private sector, I know there are a lot of private partnerships. There are private entities investing in sports, specifically football, and exporting Ghanaian players, I know, mostly to Europe. And I have a couple of friends who are making it. I mean, getting a lot of returns from that. So you may want to talk to them. Okay, any more questions? Yeah, mindful of the time. So maybe your final comments. But then I will say we are still here till tomorrow, and we can discuss further. We had an interest for the Basic Sanitation Fund, the Ghana Sanitation Fund. We are going to pick up further discussions. It is still open. That project has gone through all the processes, and with our security man here, who is doing the checking, every process to ensure that the project meets all the market requirements. That is also there for us to engage more. Tomorrow, we are there, and the rest of the day, we are also available. And then the other raft of investment opportunities we showed you, the food security, the irrigation systems, the railway projects, and all that. We are here. We can discuss further on the details. Just, yeah, final comment. You have a mic there.
Perhaps you can go last because you are there. Okay, thank you for listening to us. I know that we had to rush through this presentation, but certainly from the Ghana Investment Promotion Center's standpoint, we stand ready to work with all partners, whether traditional or new partners, to attract a range of capital into greenfield, brownfield, and portfolio opportunities in the country. As we have, given the summary to, we have a number of priority sectors, and these sectors require urgent capital. There are companies that have the know-how that are willing to become JV partners in this endeavor. And of course, it is a commercial endeavor. Even though we talk about impact and sustainability, we should not lose sight of the returns, which are incredibly attractive in a country like Ghana. The geographical advantages are huge. The commercial pivot to the AFCFTA is something that we should not lose sight of. The robustness within our judiciary and our democratic and political setup ensures that capital can come and sit, capital can have predictability and stability to be able to then expatriate those dividends back to service loans and to shareholders. And so we remain committed to that, but we also recognize that this capital should be impactful and sustainable. And we will be very foolish to be here at this UN summit talking about sustainability without being mindful of that, which is why the Ghana Cares program, which is a government-wide initiative to attract and retain 70 billion cedis worth, about $9 billion equivalent into the economy, has these anchor traits. And therefore, I entreat all of us here today and those colleagues who are not listening and who may be interested in Ghana to certainly have a conversation with myself and my colleague here, and we'll be able to shed even more light on some of the things that we are doing. And once again, we are grateful for the opportunity to have taken part in this session.
Thank you, Yao, and thank you for bringing this particular dimension to it. Just to conclude more broadly from a UN perspective, I mean, there are a raft of agencies who are in the process of developing some of these ideas to the point of investment, but we already know that UNCDF has, using its Bridge and Build funds, already launched in the Ghana space, and I think of the countries their recent launch went through, Ghana is ahead in terms of the number of applications by a long margin, and so we definitely see that there are opportunities there. We'll continue to deepen our relationship within the UN with the various different actors, with the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, with Ghana, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, and a raft of the other actors in order to create some of the, I call them sort of ecosystem enablers to enable private sector investment to come through. An upcoming space that we are working quite closely with the Office of the President and the SDGs at the moment is in relation to the north of Ghana, which traditionally has a lot lower indicators. And in September, there will be a Northern Ghana Development and Investment Summit, which is scheduled, which is really trying to bring through development partners, private sector actors, to look at specific opportunities tied to government initiatives such as One District, One Factory, to present some of the ecosystem opportunities specifically in that area. And so we will be looking to present these back into this space over the coming months and attract attention to that summit, which is happening in September. And thank you for listening, and thank you for being broad enough to see a different picture than what we had originally planned to present here today. Thank you.
Just on the last bit that which we forgot to add on, there's still a bit of capacity issues in terms of preparing bankable project to full proposal. So if we want to touch on it, there's that opportunity also for investors to come in to take projects from feasibility to full proposal and even put their money in, if you may want to talk about it.
No, you just finish off since you started talking about it. Yeah.
So that opportunity is also there, just to, express that also to you, to say, most of the projects are at feasibility stages, and they are quite bankable. But we need that kind of capacity to move the project to a full proposal stage, and then even further invest in the project. So you're also welcome to partner with us. Thank you. Max.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles, Yao, and Peter. Maybe a round of applause to our panelists today, and thanks for the interesting programs. I have some just organizational matters. Unfortunately, as you know, we are a bit late, but it's really time for lunch. So it's at the same place you were yesterday, so at the back of the main pavilion. And we kindly ask you to get back to the main room at 2:30, so that we can try to conclude as much as possible as per the schedule. But thanks again for joining. And this afternoon has been also left for bilaterals and engagement among the participants. So please get in touch with Peter, Yao, and Charles if you want to meet them later on. So thanks everyone, and have a nice lunch. Thank you.
I said four emails myself.
لأننا غادي نتلاقاو.